Welcome everybody to a freezing cold winter's day and the video that will teach you how to do a proper, good, old-fashioned, classic, efficient, useful, versatile, genuine, original and trademarked bunny hop. The act of hopping the bike off the ground was pioneered by Sir John Bunny Hop back in 1856. He used the more inefficient two-wheel pronking technique after watching Springboks playing while on sabbatical in South Africa. He used this technique to set many regional records until he developed the improved version 3 years later, where he lifts the front wheel followed by hopping off the back wheel. This was thanks to his aunt, Lady Annabel Nosedive III, illegally importing bunny rabbits to his home country in 1859. In attempts to escape the authorities, she hid the animals in Sir John's home where he cared for them and studied their leaping techniques before bringing them to the bicycle world. To this day, his estate is funded by the millions of dollars that flow in every time someone does a bunny hop. The more you know. I've harped on about actually getting outside and learning some new skills this series of How to Bike. I won't berate you again, but if you haven't gone out to practice yet, figure out what's stopping you from taking that first step. Watch episode 1, get inspired, how to learn a new skill, and we'll actually just get going. Recommend going through at least the first part of how to learn manuals though, because that balanced and controlled front wheel lift is crucial to the first step of learning proper bunny hops. Let's give gravity the middle finger, pump Sir John's family trust fund, and score some self-generated airtime. Bike selection will influence how easy or difficult this learning process is. The longer the bike, the more suspension it has, the softer the suspension, and the lower the bars are, the harder it will be to bunny hop. You can do bunny hops on almost any bike, but if you have the choice between a downhill bike and a trials bike, the trials bike will be an easier platform to learn on. There's only one absolute unbreakable rule when learning bunny hops. You need to learn with flat pedals. Any form of clipped or strapped pedal will make it too easy to cheat and develop incorrect movement patterns. Pumping up the tires, firming up suspension can also help a bit, but it's up to you whether you feel you need to. Let's quickly go over the front wheel lift, which is similar to the beginning of the manual technique. You want to practice a nice, even, controlled lift with no side-to-side imbalance. To do this, you should roll along just above walking pace, stood up, out of the saddle in the boss stance. To lift the front, you should sharply compress the front suspension or just the tire if you're on a rigid bike. Focus on pushing the bars down into the ground rather than trying to pull the front end up off the ground. As the tire and suspension rebound, your arms lock out and the front wheel will lift slightly. Pushing the bike forwards and away from you while doing this will lift the front even more. It feels like your hands are moving in the shape of a capital J when you're doing this properly. Practice this until you feel like you can lift the front end to a decent height in a balanced and controlled way. Hopefully you've gone through the wheelie and manual videos and practiced them so that you are familiar with using the back brake to bring things back down should you overcook it. You've definitely watched them. Yep, good. Initiating the hop. So at the moment things are kind of similar to the manual, but how does it differ? With the manual, you're aiming to get to an end point of having straight arms, center of mass being over the rear axle, and bent legs placed on your bum just over the rear wheel. With the bunny hop, you should never get that far. You can initiate a hop from a manual, but it takes a lot of skill to make sure your balance point remains perfectly over the rear axle as you're performing a complex move like a hop. Hop with your center of mass too far forward or too far back, and you'll quickly discover what happens. Most of the time, the hop is initiated before you get to that balanced manualing point. How soon you initiate the hop before getting to the balance point depends on bike geometry, body shape, technique variance, rate of front wheel lift, wind direction, what you ate for breakfast, and probably what color socks you're wearing. During the next drills, you will figure out when is perfect for you and your bike. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. The exaggerated maximal version of the hop looks like a vicious handlebar hump, and that's exactly what it is. This drives the back wheel down into the ground while pushing as much of your bike and body up as possible. The more mass you can move up with as much acceleration as possible, the bigger the hop. So let's try it. Begin by doing that controlled front wheel lift and then bring the hips forward a bit by starting to straighten out the body. Don't aim for a full power, maximal, stand fully straight one quite yet. Just a coy tease of a bar hump. What should happen is the front wheel immediately comes back down and the back wheel maybe does a tiny hop. Don't worry if it doesn't. Try adding a bit more speed and power to this move and you should notice the front wheel still comes back down, but the back wheel maybe hops a little bit more. Now, you want to repeat this, but practice trying to do the hip move later and later into the front wheel lift. So the front wheel is higher when you initiate that pop. The higher your front wheel is, the closer your center of mass is to being balanced over the rear axle, which allows you to hop without immediately rotating forward into a nosedive. The goal is to land both wheels at the same time. That is the signal that tells you you've mastered the timing of the bunny hop and are initiating the hop with your center of gravity just in front of the balance point. If you land front wheel first, try and get the front wheel a little higher before popping. If you feel like you're going to loop out, don't pop. Haul on the back brake and bring that front wheel back down. You'll do that automatically though, because you've obviously watched and practiced wheelies and manuals already and have the muscle memory in place. That was a lot of explanation for one part of the bunny hop maneuver, but it's the most important one and the one that takes the most time to master. You'll need to dedicate a few sessions to this to really get a feel for it. But Ben, you haven't told us about getting the back wheel off the ground. Right, hang on, I'm getting to it. You'll have heard others talking about practicing back wheel lifts by pointing the toes and scooping the back end up, as that's what happens when you bunny hop, right? 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 Yeah? Wrong. While it makes logical sense, it's not the case. The feet don't really do anything to lift the back end during a normal bunny hop. They can be used to help scoop the back end up higher if you're trying to hop over something really big. But even then, the back end comes off the ground thanks to proper bunny hopping technique. The act of generating all the upward momentum during the hop with straight arms means as your body goes up, the straight arms pull the bike off the ground with you, and the rebounding of the tire or suspension also helps the rear wheel to get airborne. All you have to do is guide the bike with your arms to create tension between your bars and your pedals to keep those feet pressed into the pedals. You do this by pushing the bike smoothly forwards to level the bike out after the hop. That's it. If you find your feet floating off the pedals at any point, get the phone out, film what you're doing, check back to these examples in this video to see what you're doing wrong. Identify, adjust, try again. Do bunny hops everywhere. Like the other skills, it's the only way to get good at them. You'll find yourself hopping like a pro within no time. Then you can start to experiment with bunny hopping on jumps to really boost to the moon. Go watch the jumping episode if you're keen on that, and you'll notice a lot of parallels with this episode. This is one of the most versatile and fun skills you will learn on a bike, but it does take a good amount of practice to get good at it. You can do it. Remember, get out there and just start trying. Document the process, let us know how it goes by tagging @Pinkbike and #HowToBike. Let's try start a little learning community that encourages people to learn and try something new. Good luck, and I'll see you next year. Oh, shout out to Sir John for inventing this skill all those years ago. The sponsors of this series for making it all possible, Pinkbike for letting me do what I want with extremely limited oversight, and the Sleeper Collective crew for putting this all together. Oh my god, Ben is really tall.
Oh, really cold!
Oh,
How to bike ghosts. Oh. You need to get out and practice your skills. Ben. Get him.